Hello and welcome back or welcome to the channel. I'm Loudguns, and in this video we're going to dive headlong into a life of crime in Star Citizen. Because contrary to popular belief, crime does in fact pay in 323. If you're ready to get your hands dirty, we're going to combine elements of sabotage, assassination and smuggling to rack up some credits. All while hopefully keeping our noses clean, at least in the eyes of the UEE. So if this sounds good to you, grab a cup of tea while I roll the intro, then let's get into it. Criminal gameplay in SC covers a range of PvE and PvP loops, so just to be clear from the outset, what we're focusing on today is primarily the PvE side of things. If you do pick up a crime stat of 3 or higher, then you may well find yourself up on the bounty hunting board. So other players might be hot on your heels, but we're going to be going after NPCs rather than other people. The core of this centres on the criminal mercenary missions issued by Vaughn, one of the NPC mission givers, which are essentially the naughty version of the PvE bounty hunting loop. But we're going to also look at recovering cargo and taking down Comm-arrays to get away with things more effectively. I don't have sponsorships on my videos, so hopefully you won't mind if, just very quickly before we jump into this, I take a minute to talk about a cause that's very important to me personally. This Saturday, just gone, we ran a charity stream to raise funds for the Wave Project, a small charity here in the UK that helps kids through surf therapy, building confidence, reducing anxiety, and helping them to build friendships. Thanks to the phenomenal support from the community, we raised £1,100, which will go up above £1,200 once the gift aid's applied to it, and all in spite of a few griefers seeking their 15 minutes in the spotlight. So I'd just like to take this opportunity to say a big thank you to everyone from Frontier Consolidated, the Garden Initiative, Northfield, USC and Ragtag Mercs for helping out with the event. The campaign is still up if you would like to head over to Just Giving to take this total even higher. You'll find a link just down in the video description. But truly, I'm just so grateful to all who helped us smash our goal. So back to crime. My org mate Ravnak let me know about something he'd seen flagging around about illegal mission trees, so we set out to investigate. But to start with, we've got to get out there and build up our reputation with Vaughn so that he offers us some of his juiciest contracts. You'll find these assassination missions in the contract manager, switching over to unverified using the slider at the top. Then head to the mercenary tab and look for the mission giver Vaughn. Missions we're looking for follow a naming convention of a something task, and the first ones we'll see will either be a simple task, a rudimentary task, or a negligible task, and they'll all pay out 2.5k. There are usually 2 of these missions available, one in Crusader and one in Hurston. This pattern stays the same all the way through the grind, so my recommendation is to pick one of these systems and stick in it. Don't waste your time running back and forth between the two. Of Hurston and Crusader, I always prefer Crusader, because you don't get actual bounty targets on Crusader itself, whereas you do on Hurston, and going into a much higher gravity atmosphere and out again just takes a lot more time. These missions are essentially the same as bounties, so think of this first one as pretty much like a VLRT. It's not going to take long, particularly when I'm in F7A and they're flying things like Auroras. A few quick kills later and we'll get the mission complete and start building our rep with Vaughn. Slight downside here, we've also got a shiny crime stat. Alongside a bunch of vehicle destructions, we're always going to get at least one homicide charge from the main target, meaning at minimum we're looking at CS3. Crime stats of 1 and 2 can be paid off, but once you hit 3 it only ends one of 2 ways. Either we can try and hack it, or we'll end up in prison. But until then, more crime. Missions progress as you build up rep with Vaughn, with 7 levels of mission. Given the names change around, the key thing is the payment level. 2,500, 4,250, 12,500, 17,500, 30,000, 37,500, and finally 45,000 credits. The rep grind here really isn't too bad, particularly when compared with legitimate bounty hunting, and you'll get through the levels pretty quickly. But from the time you slot the first one, that crime stat is going to be on your head, so keep in mind that it pays to be quick. Pop your targets, take care of any escorts you need to, and then just get out. Bounty hunters will have a marker over your head as long as you're in a comm-array, so I would typically avoid hanging around any spots that they can jump to, OM points for example. Inevitably though, you will likely end up in Klesha, Stanton's prison. And after racking up a bunch of murder charges, it's likely to be quite a significant sentence. You can always just wait this out and go and touch grass or sleep away in real life, but you can also take measures to reduce your sentence. And mining for gems is an option, but it's a pretty bad one to be honest. The better approach though is a mix of maintenance missions and, well, more crime. You'll get inmate maintenance missions appear periodically, and these will direct you to service one of the oxygen kiosks in the prison's work mines. The mines have 3 routes, and the missions will guide you down a certain one to a certain depth. As you follow the mines down, you'll see the depth on the signs, and this will just help you orient yourself and find your way. If you come up against any red crosses, that means it's a dead end, and you want to look for the pathway which has a sign above it to point you in the right direction. Once you get to the right depth, you'll find a kiosk with an error message. Interact with it to vent, and you'll get merits to take time off your release. Right now, oxygen is a bit bugged in the prison, so you'll lose it very quickly, so just be sure to walk rather than sprinting to cover more ground. As a workaround, you can also sacrifice a bit of your HP by taking your helmet off and putting it in your backpack, and then putting it back on again very quickly to recover oxygen. Don't ask me why this works, but it just does, and it is a workaround to the issue with the oxygen itself. So now for the crime. Once you progress past a certain depth, you'll see the comm links being lost. You'll get a message, and in the top left of your screen, the little eye icon will disappear. After this point, you're free to start knocking out some of the NPCs in the mine. Approach them a middle mouse button to perform a melee attack and knock them down. You can loot these guys, and in their backpacks you'll find the fruits of their labour, and you can rob them of it rather than doing it yourself. Adonite is still the most valuable gem, but in Klesha, Dolivine is more valuable than Aphorite, so prioritise Hadonite and Dolivine. You'll also find Oxypens in the inventory which you can use to keep yourself going. Now if you're really into RP, you can attempt to follow the exit signs and get yourself back up to the levels of the prison where you can cash in, but if you're a filthy min-maxer you can just hit exit to menus, op region and log back in, at which point you're going to wake back up in the top of the prison. Either way, you'll find the hand-in terminals at the first level of each route where you can deposit your ill-gotten gems and get a further sentence reduction. But my time in Klesha gave me time to think about changing my ways, so I don't want to waste a second more of my time in this dump, so after I get out, I don't want to come back in. So from now on, I promise I will never again commit crimes, and get caught. So if we're not going to stop the assassinations, we'd better stop anyone reporting them, and the key here is to sabotage the Comm-arrays. Each moon and planet has its own comm-array that covers the area, so if we're going to commit crimes around Yela, we would want to head to the Yela comm-array first. You'll need a crypto key, such as the Tiger Claw, to carry out the hack. Typically you can buy these at Grimhex, but in this patch the interaction is a bit bugged, so I've headed to pick some up from Microtech. There's a store in the New Babbage Commons where you can buy these from a terminal. For the most foolproof approach, you'll want a hoverbike of some description to sneak past the security of the comm-array. These are typically surrounded by turrets that will shoot at you in a ship if you trespass on their property. So if you park your main carrier ship about 15 kilometers out, it's pretty safe, and then you can use your hoverbike to get in closer to the array. You'll find the entrances here in between the solar panels, so hop off and EVA inside. Head down to the bottom where you'll find the terminal. Now I found it easiest, rather than having the Tiger Claw attached to my person, to just have it in my inventory in my backpack. And then you can just open your inventory, right click on the crypto key, and select carry to get it into your hand. Then you look at the slot and press F to insert the card, and start the hack. This will take a wee while to run. Periodically in the hack you will stall and you'll need to just select continue on it. Keep in mind that interfering with the comm-array will start a network intrusion mission for other players, so other folks could be coming to stop you. Just make sure you've got a gun and you're ready just in case. But once the hack is complete, you'll have the option to disconnect the uplink, at which point the comm-array will drop out. And assuming nobody turns it back on, you are free to commit as many crimes as you like without picking up a CS. So while the top level missions from Vaughn pay 45k versus the 25k available for ERTs from legal bounties, all this effort probably doesn't seem worth it for a 20k margin. But the key here is the cargo that they're hauling. The cargo loot tables from these missions are a lot more favourable than the ones on offer from bounties, and you'll find some decent commodities, both legal and illegal. Included within them are worthwhile stuff like tier 1 metals, bexolite, taronite and gold, along with contraband like Altrusia toxin, slam, neon, etam and widow. However, the jackpot commodities are quantanium at 25k per SCU, and gasping weaver eggs which go for 112k a box. In these missions, unlike the legal bounty tree, you'll potentially find 32 SCU crates of these commodities. So it can really stack up if you get a particularly good hit. But if we're going to pull this off as a proper heist, we're going to have to think about 3 factors. Sabotage, taking and keeping the Comm-arrays down, assassination, making sure we've got enough firepower to take out the targets, and smuggling, making sure that we've got the cargo space to haul the goods after we're done. It is theoretically possible to do this all solo. Using something like a Connie Taurus, you could cover all the bases. You could pop a hover bike in the back so you can make the Comm-array run, then go and punch the target given the good level of pilot weaponry, and then you've got a decent cargo hold for the goods. But while it is an option, it's a bad one. Even when you're limiting your missions to Crusader where you've only got 3 moons, they could always spawn at different ones, so you would have to go back and forth and do repeated trips to the Comm-arrays. Plus, if we leave them unattended, someone could always just come and stick them back on when we're midway through a mission. Then considering we've got the potential to find the decent hauls including large 32 SCU crates, if we were going to hit the motherlode with a Taurus, it's only got 174 SCU of cargo and we could just end up leaving a lot of that behind. So I guess it's pretty much time to get the Frontier Cartel back together. We put together a 10-person crew aiming to cover all of the bases. 2 members of our team went and took down the Comm-arrays at Yella and Daymar, then stood guard over them. A big thanks to Sly and Camfoud for doing this. It's a pretty boring job, but they still got paid, and we made sure they had a decent book each. We also brought a couple of spare bikes just in case we needed to shut the one at Selin down. I have noticed that this is the least likely to offer one of these mission spawns. We then assembled our kill team with 5 of our crew, bringing 3 Connies for heavy firepower and 2 infighters to help take care of any smaller ships and provide a bit of close protection. Finally, we rounded things out with 3 smugglers, bringing 2 Hercules C2s to load the cargo. Having 2 cargo ships provides a bit of flexibility, which I think would have really kicked in if we'd gone a little bit longer. Since you'll likely end up with a mix of legal and illegal cargo, having 2 haulers would allow you to concentrate the legal in one and the illegal in the other, meaning that the one ship can head to a TDD to sell, while the other goes to a scrapyard for the NQA terminal. Getting launched and the Comm-arrays down took us about half an hour, then we ran missions for the next 2 hours or so just to test this. The main target of these missions will be flying something from a pretty short list. It's either a Hammerhead, an A2, an 890 Jump or a Redeemer. Then they'll be accompanied by 3 escort ships, typically 1 or 2 of these as a Connie or a Corsair. Then you've got C2s, M2s, 600Is, Caterpillars, Reclaimers or Carracks. This is where it does really help to have at least 1 if not more ships with pretty heavy firepower. Things like the Connie, where I favour 4 Omniski laser cannons, give sizable DPS, good for taking down larger ships with big shields. When it comes to the cargo, keep in mind that anything with a grid is worth checking in these missions. The Hercs are the best, but you can also find decent amounts on the Connies and Corsairs. Carracks, Reclaimers and Caterpillars seem to be bugged this patch and they rarely contain cargo. And even when they do, the Reclaimers and the Carracks are really a pain to get it out of. It is really helpful to have 2 people on your smuggling ship, allowing one person to dive across to the wreck while the other parks up nice and close. The scans are a little bit hit and miss, so it always pays to have somebody to check even if you can't see a reading of any cargo on any of the ships. Then you've got your pilot who can help drop down and help stack the cargo as it's received by the ship. This is particularly the case when you get ground-based targets that may land a bit oddly and need a bit of parkour to get inside. So since it was a school night and we had about 3 hours for this session, we wrapped things up with a sail. Most of the cargo we had was illegal, so we headed first to Devlin's scrapyard on Euterpe. We also then took about 40 SCU of Quantanium to sell at the new Babbage TDD. The income here is going to be variable, just depending on how lucky you get, particularly with the weave legs and the Quantanium. But just as a rough example of what's possible, what we got here in this evening was 17.25 million. On another night's test run, myself and Sylar got incredibly lucky when we netted an A2 and a C2 filled with 5.8 million of Quantanium and 3 million's worth of weaver legs and other drugs. Things did get a little spicy at the sell point there since I did have a CS5. These are pretty punchy payouts compared with other loops, but most importantly for me, it's more interesting gameplay that rewards teamwork and involves a fair bit of risk. And hopefully it has knock-on effects, creating more legitimate targets for player bounty hunters, and a good old-fashioned bit of spice around the scrapyard sale points. So I hope you found this video interesting, and that it might cause a few of you to have a moral slip and take the risk of a life of criminality. And if you'd like to find a crew to run with, I'm pretty sure there's a few folks over at the Frontier Discord who'll be willing to bend or break a few rules. You'll find the link down in the video description. Big thanks to Ravnak, Astro, Camfoud, Sylar, Sly, Flint, Lion's Mane, Noisemaze and Sniggy for their help with this one. It took a while to fully work out and put together, and despite a few hiccups with invisible asteroids, it was a great laugh. So with all that said, thanks very much for watching all the way to the end, and I look forward to seeing you next time.